Our top story, though, tonight. And there is pressure on the vaping industry to crack down on the sale of vapes to children. That's as more and more young people are becoming addicted to using them, sometimes with catastrophic consequences. Tonight, the Sun newspaper is reporting that ministers could be about to ban certain e-cigarettes, with plans set out as early as tomorrow in what would be a fundamental change in policy affecting hundreds of thousands of people across the UK. Well, how serious is the problem? 1 in 10 secondary school children now regularly vapes. In 2013, just 3% of children aged 11 to 15 had vaped, but that rose to 10% in 2022. And recent data showed that vape sensors installed in schools are being set off as many as 22 times a day. Well, let's bring in the Sun's political editor, Harry Cole, who has this story. Good evening, Harry. What is the government expected to do to curb vaping?
So within the coming days, we understand that Neil O'Brien, who's the Public Health Minister, is going to launch a listening exercise, a public consultation in the Parliament that basically says to help us ministers decide whether this is a problem that we need to step into. There is growing concern within government that while vaping is helping lots of people give up smoking, lots of adults give up smoking, they don't want to do anything to stop that. There is a growing problem with colourful, very exciting flavoured vapes being very appealing to children. They're available in corner shops, in petrol stations, supermarkets. We should say some supermarkets have already banned some of these things off their own bat. But there's a growing problem with this in schools, as you say, alarms being set off left, right and centre. That means that it's time for ministers to step in. This won't happen immediately. There'll be a sort of 6-week, 12-week, 18-week, who knows, listening exercise, but they're ready to take action.
So initially, the government looking at banning some of those flavours, those coloured vapes that are particularly attractive to children. But we know that there are some serious health concerns linked to long-term use. Do you think the government could be prepared to go further eventually?
Well, there's a dilemma within government because obviously smoking is a terrible blight on the NHS, it's a terrible blight on public health. And if adults are able to shift onto vapes, it can help their own health in the long run and ease the pressures on the NHS to a far greater scale. That said, I'm not sure that flavours like candy ice, pink grapefruit, strawberry kiwi, etc. are necessarily helpful to that cause, especially when they seem to be targeted at children. These are foreign-produced pieces of equipment. They have battery lives that last far beyond their use. They're very hard to recycle. It's a growing concern in Whitehall that perhaps there's a problem that's getting out of control and they're ready to step in.
And how realistic, finally, is it for the government to introduce these curbs? Because we know that some of these vapes are sold under the counter. They're not necessarily sold legally in shops. They're places that people can go to get them. They can be very strong already. Is it realistic for ministers to try and stop their use?
Well, I think it is, because actually there's a way, because of supermarkets, shops, petrol stations, if they are caught selling illegal goods, they face very high fines already. They face losing their sort of licences to sell tobacco products. So there is ways of controlling this. However, as you say, there is a very strong black market already on these imported vapes that perhaps the horse has already bolted too late. But it does seem that finally the government have woken up, perhaps in the run-up to an election where parents will be deciding how they're going to vote in the coming months and years. It looks like this is something the government has woken up to finally that they could be in trouble on.
Harry Cole, the Sun's political editor, thank you very much. And you can read that story, of course, in the Sun newspaper tomorrow. Well, while research into the long-term effects of vaping is still in its initial stages, there are concerns over what damage it could be causing. Medical professionals have warned that prolonged exposure to harmful chemicals could cause anything from lung disease to cancer. One man who knows exactly what harm can come from vaping is 22-year-old Ewan Fisher, who spent 10 weeks in hospital when he was just 16 years old. After vaping for 6 months left him with the lungs of an 80-year-old. He now gives talks to young people, warning them of the dangers so they don't have to go through what he did. And Ewan Fisher joins me now from his home in Nottingham. Thank you, Ewan, for being with us this evening. Now, look, you chose to vape in order to stop smoking cigarettes and because you thought it was healthier. Just explain to people what happened to you.
So basically, in May of 2017, I stopped vaping 2 weeks prior to going into hospital. And I actually went to hospital because I was choking in my sleep, and my mum woke me up and took me there just to make sure everything was all right, because she knew, obviously, a parent knows best when something isn't all right. And we first got to the hospital, and they did all my sats and stuff like that, and the machines didn't really go off. And my mum thought, no, there's definitely something more to it. So we waited outside and went again. From then on, the machine started beeping, etc. And I got taken onto a ward. And within a few days, I was on intensive care, on CPAP. And then I just kept going downhill. I got put on 2 life support machines in an induced coma, and ended up in Glenfield in Leicester, actually, where it took me a long time. Obviously, I got given 20% chance to survive. And then when I came around finally, after my family had been told to come and say goodbye to me. It took me a good 8 months to a year to walk again. It was a very long recovery.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because, I mean, it's incredibly serious what happened to you. Have doctors been able to tell you whether there is any long-term lasting damage?
They said that my lungs would fully recover, but it's been near enough 6 years from when it happened. And I'm still not myself now. I've still got quite a lot of joint pains. I've not got the same lung capacity as what I used to have. And I'm always choking phlegm up every morning like a full-time smoker. And I don't even smoke. I don't vape no more. I don't do nothing.
You said, I believe, that you were attracted to vaping partly because of the colours of vapes and the flavours and the idea that because they were colourful, because they had these flavours like strawberry kiwi, they were not that dangerous. Do you think that's the case for other young people?
Yes, 100%. It's so easy to get to get attracted to the liquids and the flavors and all the colors. It's just, they're so easy to get hold of nowadays as well. Like, you can go into any shop and you don't really get questioned. Well, that was the case when I was going to buy them, especially. And it's easy enough to get someone to go into the shop and get it for you as well.
What do you tell young people when you go and speak to them now about vaping? Because you must come across lots and lots of youngsters in schools when you go and do these talks who are addicted to vaping, who are smoking all of the time and think, well, it's no big deal.
Yeah, no, just say to them, please stop. And I try and show them photos. And I don't want you to end up how I was, because it's not just you that it affects. It does affect your family, and it gives you long-term effects. And I wanted to go semi-professional, etc., boxing, and I lost everything from this, and it changed my whole life, really. And luckily now I've got good people around me, so yeah, just carry on with my life and try and do what's best for me and keep fit.
And Ewan, just finally, we've just heard from Harry Cole there talking about the government banning flavours, potentially talking about banning those colourful vapes. Do you think that will make a big difference, or would you like to see them do more?
Fingers crossed, because then there would not be as much promotion in shops, etc. But I think more testing needs to go into it. And I know it would cost a lot of money and a lot of laws would have to be introduced, etc. But yeah, definitely need more testing. But 100% taking the different flavours away and all the colourful branding, that's definitely going to put a decrease in how many young people do get hold of e-cigarettes.
Ewan Fisher, thank you so much for your time this evening.